Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome, welcome, welcome. It is Tuesday. It is 3 p.m. ET, and we are so thrilled and honored that you have found us here at Crime Time on A Mighty Blaze. I'm your host, Hank Phillippi Ryan, the USA Today bestselling author of 16 going on 17 novels of suspense. Thank you, Mary. My newest book is All This Could Be Yours, which is now in its second printing, an instant USA Today bestseller. And as you will hear coming up, my brand new novel is Mother, Daughter, Sister, Stranger, which Mary Kubica is the first person in the world ever to read. So I am very pleased about that, and we'll be talking about that at some point. But today I am so pleased to introduce Mary to you. Her brand new book, It's Not Her, comes out in about 3 weeks. And it is unbelievably good. It is riveting. It is immersive. It is so touching and heartbreaking and so scary and so surprising. And as I told Mary, I suspected everybody. There are so many twists and turns. Mary is just the queen of domestic suspense. And I know you've heard that a million times, but there's a way that Mary gets into people's heads that is absolutely staggeringly talented. She is incredible. I will tell you, it passed the treadmill test. You know, I read on the treadmill, and that's a slog. And it's all I can do. I'm looking at my watch every minute to get off of it. But I wrote for hours and hours with It's Not Her because Mary's book is just so completely immersive, and I am thrilled to have her today. Welcome to you all. I'm lovely to see you all. Is that Mary? Welcome. And you're in Chicago?
I'm in Chicago. It's a beautiful day here. It's going to be like 50 degrees. So I can't complain about our winter for today, at least.
Wow, 50 degrees in Chicago. That is quite amazing. You know, we were talking a minute ago about the treadmill effect. Is that something that's top of mind to you, to keep your books sticky and being page-turning suspense?
Yeah, it really is. I mean, that's what readers of suspense want, they want many things. They want to connect with readers. They want a big twist at the end, but they really want that page turning suspense. They don't want to be bored.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's always, in the back of my mind is how can I keep this plot moving? And, how can I keep it fast and keep, when a reader finishes the end of a chapter, I don't want them to put the book away. I want them to dive right into the next chapter. So yes, for sure. Like always in the back of my mind, I am thinking, how can I do this? How can I make this book that much faster paced and just really immersive and things like that to keep the reader, on the treadmill?
Yes. Well, you are responsible for my physical fitness, I have to say. This book absolutely does it. I know that you don't use an outline. And so since you don't, that seems sort of antithetical to being so structurally conscious of having a story be suspenseful. Is there a music or a rhythm in your head of pacing?
There's not. I just, I have like zero method, honestly. I sort of just dive in. I have that starting point, it's some sort of mystery is developing and I dive in and 9 times out of 10, I have no idea what the answer is. I don't know why this has happened. I don't know who my villain is. I really, my characters are pretty I haven't developed them yet. I know them by name, but I don't really know them. And so I just dive in and I start writing and I sort of start to solve this mystery along with my character. And in doing this, I get to know all the characters a little bit more, but I also just get deeper and deeper into this mystery and the characters' backstories and just things like that and start to figure out, what happened, what brought all these people together at this point in time. And, what is that big thing that happened? What's that big twist and who did this and why did they do this and things like that. So I think about things like short chapters. Short chapters are propulsive. So even though I don't know exactly how this is all going to unfold, I know that much. So I'll try and keep my chapters on the shorter side because that alone is going to make the book read a little faster. I try to end all of my chapters on some sort of cliffhanger. So again, even though, I don't know what's going to happen in the next chapter, but I think about how this current chapter that I'm writing is going to end and what note can I end it on that's going to make the reader want to just move right on to that next chapter.
So it's a cliffhanger for you too.
Yeah, exactly. And, it's fun sometimes when I'm writing, one of those like weird things I try to do. It seems counterintuitive, but when I'm writing and the words are flowing, I actually try and stop like in the middle of that instead of, finishing a scene and like having that sense of completion, because then the next day I can jump right back into where I left off and have that same excitement, feel that sense of I know where I am, I know what's happening. But yeah, a lot of times when I end those chapters, I'll leave it on something and then it takes me a minute to think, okay, what comes next?
And we all have our ways, cross fingers, knock on wood, that work for us. And we'll talk about this specific book. If you just joined us, welcome, welcome, welcome. Hi, Christy H. Hi, Katie Crutchfield and Shanson. Renee is here and Andrew Vall is here. So many more people are here. That's fantastic. I do think, though, and we'll talk about this specifically in a minute, and the plot and the story and the characters, but I do think when you're talking about being a pantser as you're writing your novel, and getting to know your characters that way, it's revealed through the decisions that they make who they are. And doesn't it feel that it reveals it to you? Oh, that's what you're thinking. Oh, that's why you did that. Oh, now I understand you a little bit more.
Yeah, it's absolutely like that. And I know that you're a bit of a pantser too. So I know we probably have a very similar process, but that's exactly how it is. I might be writing and, I dream up, a line of dialogue or just, say what, I think this character is thinking. And all of a sudden I see that character in a different light. Sometimes we might say things when we're speaking about our writing, like the characters write the story, or we just sort of like let the characters tell us where the story is going to go. And, it's sort of like that. Yes, we are the writer and yes, we are the ones typing out the words, but there is just like a bit of magic to it that I love, and there's all sorts of different writers. There's no right or wrong way. The way Hank and I do it may not be the way that other people do it. But as a pantser, I just absolutely love, getting up in the morning and really not knowing, what, I'm going to learn about my characters that day or what's going to happen in their lives.
We are in search of the story along with the reader. And that is just so exciting. I remember very clearly writing one book where I finally said to the character, and you'll understand this, you all, because you're readers. I finally said to the character, why are you being so unpleasant? Everything she was saying was just so unpleasant. And I thought she was good, and she just wouldn't be good. And I was very happy with that because it made me feel that I had tapped into something that was bigger than what I knew, if that makes any sense.
Yeah. I feel like sometimes when we try to control it too much, that we're missing something, you sort of have to just like let it go a little bit because there's something that wants to happen, on these pages and in these characters' lives. And I feel like, if you can just kind of take a step back, sometimes you'll see that. Or I know sometimes if I'm just really, really, really stuck on a plot thing, if I take a step back, I can actually see the answer is there. I just have been looking at it the wrong way.
I think that is the most wise thing I've ever heard, that there is something that wants to happen, and a smart author will allow that to happen, will be present and open enough to have that happen. If we're lucky, and we are lucky to have you here today, Mary Kubica, and all of you who are here to celebrate the publication of It's Not Her that comes out February 3rd. So you are hearing about here first. If you are new to Crime Time, if you're new to A Mighty Blaze, welcome. Wow, did you pick a good day to come join us? A Mighty Blaze was started at the beginning of the pandemic about going on 6 years ago by the fabulous powerhouse duo of Jenna Blum and Caroline Levitt to keep us reading new books and keep us being introduced to our favorite authors and brand new authors and brand new books like we're talking about today. We are still going strong after all these years, and we are so thrilled that you have stuck with us. We have a new producer today, Jade. We welcome her, and she is absolutely a marvelous part of the team. So everyone say, welcome, Jade, and we will bring her into the Mighty Blaze family. Let me tell you two more 4 things. One is one of you will walk away with a fabulous copy of It's Not Her. We will spin the wheel of fun at the end of the show, and one of you will win. So make sure you put a question or a comment or just general adulation for Mary and her books in the chat, and you will be entered to win a copy of It's Not Her. Now, I'm going to stop talking in a second, but let me just read you Mary's bio, because it is, you need to, I know you know who she is. I know you know all about her, but I'm going to read the formal thing just in case. Hey, Betty Fellows is here, and Christy is here, and Sky Blue is here, and Emily is here. Lori is here. Lori says, I'm always looking at the wrong thing. Sharon Carlson Person is here. Welcome, welcome, welcome to all of you. Mary Kubica is the New York Times and USA Today bestselling author of many suspense novels, including The Good Girl, Pretty Baby, She's Not Sorry, and It's Not Her. You've read these all, I know. Mary's novels have been selected as Amazon Best Books of the Month and have been library reads selections. They've been translated into more than 30 languages and have sold more than 5 million copies worldwide. She's been described as, and these are quotes from trade reviews, a hell of a storyteller and a writer of vice-like control. You fooled them, Mary, with the vice-like control. Her novels have been praised as hypnotic and thrilling and illuminating. A former high school history teacher, Mary holds a Bachelor of Arts degree from Miami University in Oxford, Ohio. I went to school in Oxford, Ohio as well. We've talked about that. In history and American literature. She lives outside Chicago with her husband and 2 children, and her brand new book is It's Not Her. Do not miss this, you all. Pre-order right now, because this is going to be the buzz of the year. Mary, tell us a little bit about It's Not Her.
Yeah, I'd love to. It's Not Her is the story of 2 families that go on vacation together in the Northwoods of Wisconsin. They rent a couple cottages in, a remote area on a lake. And, it's meant to be this like wonderful bonding time, family vacation. And then one night, a husband and wife, this is not a spoiler, it happens very early in the book, but a husband and wife in one of those cottages is killed. Their 14-year-old son is later discovered sound asleep in one of the bedrooms. He slept through the whole thing. And their 17-year-old daughter is missing. And so as one of the other surviving relatives, an aunt, her name's Courtney, and she's one of our narrators in the story. She, tries to protect the rest of the family and figure out who killed her brother and sister-in-law and find her missing niece. But, they don't know if the killer is a stranger or if the killer is one of them. And so we hear from Courtney, like I said, and then we also hear from the missing 17-year-old Reese. And her narrative begins a few days before the murders and leads up to them.
There's so many things to unpack in what you just said. Let's just take things one at a time. One, the family drama in this book is so relatable, and the characters are so recognizable and so relatable. How do you populate a book like that? How did you create the families and the other people who live in the town?
Yeah, realistic characters is very, very important to me. Just characters in general are really important to me. Like I said, I want my books to be page turners and twisty and all of that. But I also want characters that feel really authentic to the reader, that they can see, themselves in. And it doesn't mean you have to like them. It doesn't mean that you have to agree with all the decisions that the characters are making, but you need to feel like they're plausible too. You need to understand why they're doing the things that they're doing. So that's sort of always in the back of my mind. And these families, one of them in particular is a little messy. The husband and wife, there's a lot of fighting going on. The teenage children are not that agreeable. They're similar to real teenage children. But so there's just, you see the difficulties of raising teenagers and getting along with your spouse and just all of those things, really trying to be a good parent, but feeling like you're failing and all of those things I really sort of touch on in this book. So I don't really like I said kind of earlier with the whole pantser thing, I don't really take time to think a whole lot about my characters before I start writing. I sort of know them by name, but then I dive in and I just start to get to know them on the page, whether it's, I always write in the first person, almost always, I should say. And that's one of the things that I do actually to get to know my characters more, because if I'm writing in the first person, I just kind of try and put myself in their head and in their shoes. And I try to get to know them that way. I actually attempted early on, to write in third person. And I felt like such a stranger. I felt like I was an outsider, just like looking through a window at what was happening on, but I wasn't a part of it. And it just didn't work for me. I needed to be more in the story. So by writing in the first person, I feel like I can do that. And so that's how I get to know the characters, and I just sort of build their stories from there.
It's very difficult for me to write in third person. And I actually, when I started doing it, I had to, for a couple of books, I had to sit at my computer and think, once upon a time, there was a beautiful princess, because I know that structure and how the words would go, but first person is so much closer to me, and it just emerges from that. The other thing about the families in the book is that the relationships among each character, the relationships between each character, are so fascinating, because it's you know what each character thinks the relationship is, and it might be completely opposite. So those inner conflicts between each ray of your novel, each character ray and each character connection, are so gorgeously done. Did that evolve as well?
It did. It really did evolve. I mean, I'm not kidding when I say that when I, first start writing those, those first pages, I have no idea. I have no idea that there's going to be this conflict between the husband and the wife. And, it's just something happens. And as I start to sort of like compensate for why did this happen, I think up reasons, and, so then it just creates those different dynamics. But I do, I almost always have multiple perspectives. And that sort of allows me to do what you just said. When we can get inside a couple different characters' heads, you can see that not everybody is seeing the same situation or relationship the same. And so that's fun to do. And I feel like, you can see just sort of like how conflicts rise. But I think that the reader also is sort of left with the sense of, who do we believe? Like, who do we think is seeing the right thing?
Exactly. And we'll talk more about that in a minute, because I think that's such a powerful part of It's Not Her. So here you take these characters, which become fully formed as we read about them, and put them in this setting. Oh my golly, this setting is so amazing. And so, again, relatable, because we've all been to places like that. We know how they smell and how they feel and how they're weird characters. Talk a little bit about where you put these people.
Yeah. So I have to say that, first of all, I give my editor so much credit, because when I turned in this proposal, it was the same story, but it was set in the suburbs of Chicago, where I spent most of my books. And, and she just kind of thought, what if it wasn't? What if they went on vacation? And then I started thinking about that. And I just thought of all the ways that this could really up the suspense and the atmosphere in the book, and just bring something different to it that I really hadn't done so much before. I've touched on some more wooded, remote settings, but this, to set the whole book here, was different. And I'm from Chicago. I'm very familiar with Wisconsin. So it was, it was kind of easy-ish to do, to still draw on something that I'm familiar with. But it just changed the dynamics so much, because here this family is, they're on vacation. They're about 5 hours from their home in Chicago. They're in this remote area. They don't know anybody but each other. They're in these cottages. They're surrounded by trees in this lake. And, when the murders happen, they don't know the police. It takes the police time to get there. They're not sort of used to that small town environment and just what that's like. And, they don't know who they can trust, if they can trust anybody, and they're scared. And that just really raises the stakes so much more. And, when they go searching for the missing 17-year-olds, they're searching the woods, and they don't know what they're going to discover. And there's just, there was so much that I could do with it. And so I'm really so grateful for that suggestion, which seems like a minor thing when my editor threw it out, like, oh, what if? And then when I started writing, it just completely changed the book.
I always wonder how editors think about things like that. Where did that come from in her brain, to take your perfectly lovely book, which probably worked gorgeously, and make it so much bigger and so much more atmospheric? I mean, we can smell the mildew, and we can feel those old pillows, and the smell of the barbecue, and the smell of the water, and how those video games in the lobby are, and the weird people who come, and how you've taken these two families who are or aren't close and taken them out of their comfort zone totally, and then made something absolutely terrible happen. So there's nothing they can rely on. One of the things that really is even the most spectacular about this book, Mary, is the writing from the perspective of 17-year-old Reese, the girl, and one of the girls in the family. I have never read anything so authentically, gorgeously, heartbreakingly perfect as her 17-year-old perspective in the world. Her tone, her voice, her word choice, her attitude, her desires, her her complications, her lack of wisdom or wisdom. Talk a little bit about her and how you possibly did that.
Yeah, you're going to make me tear up, Hank, or you are making me tear up, I should say. She was one, I loved writing her. I mean, you and I, we've been teenage girls many years ago, but, it is such a hard time, just emotionally, and, just the difficult friendships and the difficulties, with feeling like you belong and, not knowing who you are. And just a total lack of confidence that comes across as overconfidence and sassy. And, just there's so much there. And I have a daughter, she's 20 now, but at the time I was writing it, because of course, we write, well before the book is actually out. She was probably 18-ish. And, so a lot of those conversations and just sort of that edge that Reese has, could have happened in my own home. But it's just, between, relying on like the things that I witnessed between my daughter and her friends and just those interactions, and just kind of going back to my own teen days and, what that was like. And then, which thank goodness we didn't have to deal with, but add in social media and just, everything is so visible, so in your face. When you have an argument with a friend, you can't escape it, and just to be able to like include all of that. And, so Reese she's really angry. She'd rather be anywhere in the world but on vacation with her family. And, she's struggling in her relationships with family members. She's struggling in relationships with friends back home. And she's lost, and so I really, her chapters were hard to write. They get progressively harder as you read it. But I loved having that character. I've had little bits of teenagers in my books before, but this is, I think, the most depth that I've got into a teenage character.
Well, it is unbelievably well done, and I wonder what was in your heart as you did it. I know you're a teacher, and so you're connected with younger people, but it feels like you tapped into something that is so authentically genuine with her. We really, we see the sass and we see the attitude, and our hearts break for her because, we know she's just a kid trying to be an adult.
Right. And I think that's, I think that what teens kind of present on the outside is so different than what they're feeling on the inside. And I think that was one of those things that I really wanted to sort of tap into and convey to readers.
If any of you have ever been 17, and I know you have, you will not want to miss that element of the book. I see Darlene is here and Lori is here. Sue Street says, thanks for using my state in the book, Christy H. And Renee says, I can't wait to read. It's not her. Is it based on a real story?
So it is so very loosely based on a true crime story. And in that, it's called the Ketty Cabin Murders, if anybody's heard of that. And in loosely based, I'm talking like the opening scene and that's it. Oh. But I listen to a lot of true crime podcasts. I watch, a lot of documentaries. But when I had not heard of the Ketty Cabin Murders before I started writing this book, and I was just listening to a podcast and came across it. And it's about murders that happened in 1981 in Ketty, California. And it was a woman, divorced, living in this cabin with her children. And one night, her teenage son and one of his friends were murdered in the cabin. One of her daughters had gone to a friend's house to sleep. And when she came home the next morning, she discovered them dead. Younger siblings were asleep in the bedroom and a sister was missing. And the first time I heard this, I got goosebumps. My wild imagination thought, look at all these suspects, and that that in the Ketty Cabin murders, that couldn't have been further from the truth. The kids that were asleep in the bedroom were like 5 and 10 years old. They were much too young to commit a crime like this. And the missing sister was, it took years, but she was later, her body was discovered. Her remains were discovered. So she was another victim in this attack. And the Ketty Cabin murders are still unsolved today.
Oh.
But that opening scene, I feel like most of my books when I write, I just have like this nugget of inspiration. I don't know where it's going to go, but once I heard that, about the Ketty Cabin murders, I just sort of couldn't escape this opening scene of, a child's coming home, finding her family murdered, kids asleep in the home and somebody missing. And that's where the similarities end. From there, It's Not Her goes off in a totally different direction. The characters in my book bear no similarities except, maybe in some ages to the original, the Ketty Cabin murder victims and families. But then I just kind of went off, and I started creating, this completely different story.
I love your writer brain. You hear a story like that and you go, thank you. I will take that and write this absolutely incredible, powerful opening chapter. The book is so also sort of thematically, it's a murder mystery and a police procedural and a family drama and psychological suspense like crazy, you all. But it's also so deeply about regret and how we all feel about what we could have done, what we might have done, what we should have known, the decisions that we made, and maybe we were wrong. Is that a theme that you were looking at in this book?
It is. And it's a theme that I look at in a lot of my books. A lot of my books are domestic suspense, and so I think that sort of features heavily into it, especially when someone's killed or someone is missing, when something horrific happens. I think that we all, it's human nature to kind of look at that and think, what could I have done differently? And, so I think the other big thing with my books is that, I try not, I feel like there are not that many sociopaths and psychopaths in the world. I want my books to sort of make sense when you get to the end, that it to be something so plausible, whether it's incredibly sad or whatever, but I want a reader to think this could happen. And so that's definitely kind of in my mind, and knowing that there is going to be a lot of regret.
I think that's a hallmark of a Mary Kubica book, is that they're very realistic and very believable and very plausible. There's never a moment when you think, really, that would never have happened. You think, oh, what would I do if that happened to me, is how you wind up feeling in this book. The structure of this book, which you alluded to earlier, the structure of this book is so gorgeous because it feels like it's the past sort of catching up with the present. And that is lovely. Why did you decide to do it that way?
There are books, and Hank, you can probably relate. There are books that just literally could write themselves. And there are books that fight me from from page one. And this is one of those books that just came together so well. And so I don't, that decision to write it like this, it was like a quick decision. Like, it just came to me and it just fit. And I, if I could figure out like what that magic was, I would reproduce it with every single book, and so I'm here to say that does not happen. That's a rare thing. And it's such a treat when it does happen. But this was one of those books that when I think back, why did I decide on this format, or why did I choose these people to be my narrators? I don't almost remember that decision because it just came together so smoothly.
Well, it allows the readers to know things that the characters don't know.
Yeah.
And that works really well. And another thing that is wonderfully revealed in this book is how each of us can create the story we want to believe based on puzzle pieces that we decide to choose. And so each of your main characters starts believing things about a situation and convinces themselves that it's true, and convinces us along the way, for better or for worse, that it's true, until we realize that they're not seeing the real situation. Is that fun for you? Is it like a puzzle pieces that fit together?
It is fun, and especially with the multiple narratives, it's so great to be able to work one off the other, something happens in one of the narratives, that of course is like, oh, like a big moment. And as the reader and the character, they don't know what's happening, why this is happening, who we can trust, all of those things, and then a little bit later, at the appropriate time, we might find the answer in the other, the other narrator's narrative. And so it's really fun to be able to work together like that. Now, I will say, as the book went on and we were getting closer and closer to the reveal, then I had to be very careful, like that, one of the narrators didn't spoil something that was going to happen, in the other narrative. So I had to be very careful. And, just like the closer I get to the big twist, little breadcrumbs. I didn't want to reveal too much too fast, but just let the characters kind of reveal those little breadcrumbs to the readers.
We're talking about the book It's Not Her by Mary Kubica. And if it is coming out in 3 weeks, you can pre-order it now. It is sensationally great, in the best use of sensational. Because your readers are smart, and your readers are smart. And one of the fun things for me in reading the book is when I would realize what something really meant, which was not what someone thought it meant. And sometimes it's done with much fanfare. And sometimes you just tuck it in. Like, oh, I did this because of that. And the book just goes on. But in the reader's mind, we go, oh, that's what that was. I never saw that at the time. Secrets play such a big role in this book. So as a pantser, they were secrets to you initially.
They were, I open up, I open up like all these doors, and in the back of my mind, I'm like, I got to figure out a solution for that. I've got to figure out a solution for that. I've got like tighten up all these loose endings that I have created. And so, yeah, to your point, something happens. And I think, well, this is what the reader is going to think, but that can't be what it is. But I don't know yet what it is. And
because they're trying to stay a step ahead of you. So you need to stay 2 steps
right
ahead of them.
And that is point, the readers are so smart. They are so smart. So, I'm constantly trying to think, how is the reader going to think, and how am I going to compensate for that? And all of those things. So it does get a little tricky, but it's fun. It's like, it's exhilarating. It's an adrenaline rush. It's a great time.
It's such a dance, isn't it? Because as we're writing, we're creating a story that we know sort of subconsciously that someone else will read, that we'll do our part. Then the reader does their part. And in that connection comes the power of that story.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it's this whole full circle moment, when that book finally, we spend so much time alone with it and, thinking, what is the character or a reader going to think? And is this going to surprise them? And just sort of like obsessing about all of that. And then to turn it over and hear those readers' reaction, that is the moment that it's like so worthwhile. It's such a great experience.
If I could mark all the pages where I was surprised, the book would be entirely marked up. Congratulations on this. Everyone is coming to hear you. Renee is here, Maria, Alicia, and Christy H is here. Vicki Gregory is here. That's so nice that you all came today. I know it's partly because you just want a free copy of It's Not Her, and because you are smart readers, as Mary and I have been saying. Who has a question? Let's take some questions for Mary Kubica. I know we have lots of them in the chat, and Dawn will look for them now. Patricia says, hi, Patricia, says, I have a friend who has not read one of your books yet. Do you have a suggestion as to which book with which to start? I have a suggestion.
I mean, yeah, I think that it would be a great place to start. And the feedback that I'm seeing so far has been really, really positive, which just makes me so happy. But I do feel like it would be a great place for a reader to start. If not, It's Not Her. Local Women Missing is one that readers all seem to adore. So I would definitely suggest one of those.
And to your point, Patricia, they're all standalones.
Yes.
So it's not that any of they're not series. So none of them rely on having read another book. So one of the things that Mary does that's so wise is you can start anywhere in her series of books, because it's not an actual series. It's just this book and this book and this book, a series of standalones. So that is a good thing. Dawn, who else do we have? And Jade is putting up, I know it's hard to estimate, but with this writing style, how many drafts to completion?
So when I'm I'm the kind of writer that I really, really want a chapter to be really clean before I feel comfortable moving on. If not, if there's something that is left unfinished or that just feels messy to me, it nags at me and I want to go back, and like I can't move on to the next chapter until I feel like I fixed it.
Oh.
Now, because I'm a total pantser, I almost said a plotter, because I'm a pantser, you know, there's definitely things that need to be changed or little breadcrumbs that need to be snuck in once I figure out where the story is going. But, you know, for the most part, like I kind of write clear through and then I'll go back. So there's a few drafts, but it's in all honesty, only a couple before I send it off to my editor. But again, that's because I'm really editing as I go. So it's hard to say exactly how many drafts. And then I send it to my wonderful editor, she and agents, they read it over. And then I get feedback from both of them. My editor will give me what's called an editorial notes, which is, it can go either way. You know, it always takes me like 24 hours to digest her feedback, but it's all, you know, what's working, what she feels is not working and things like that. And then we'll have a call and kind of go through it. And, you know, sometimes I feel like the feedback is spot on. Sometimes I'm not comfortable with some of the ideas or just in sort of seeing it a different way. So we'll talk that through. And then I go back into the manuscript and, you know, work on, I guess, another draft. And that's a great process, you know, because I feel like we're so close to a book when we're working on it that it's hard to see what a reader is going to see. You know, I can assume, or I might have a certain relationship with a character because I've spent so much time with them, but a reader might see them totally different. So that feedback is so critical. And the other thing that I value about this is when my editor and agent have it, that's like a month plus that I am not looking at it. Yeah. So when it comes back to me, I can see it with totally fresh eyes.
Yes. For those of you, if you don't know about it, what an editorial letter is, you send in your first draft, which is the best you can do for that time, but your mind is open to that. Your lovely, wonderful, brilliant editor is going to have some ideas, and you sort of can't wait to find out what they're going to be because you know they're all in service of making the book be the best book it can be. So who cares whose idea it is? So you get this. I get these editorial letters, and it'll say, "Dear Hank," and I wonder if yours are like this, Mary. "Dear Hank, this is the best book you have ever written. This is wonderful. This is fabulous. I'm so lucky to be the first person in the world to read this. Your readers are going to adore it. I just have a couple of thoughts." And then 14 single-spaced pages of, you know, what about the thing? And how about this?
It is so true. And they always start with the positives. Like they build you up, which is good. I highly recommend this. My husband laughs because it's like that. I get it. I read it. I'm sort of angry. I'm like, she's totally wrong. Did she even read the right book? And then 24 hours later, you know, I'm like, no, this is a great idea. No, she's right. This is right.
And there's always the one thing where you think, I'm never doing that. I am never doing that. And so then finally you think, wow, I'm doing that. You know, that's a good idea. Which is wonderful. The process is so great. Jay, do we have one more question? Did you always have this title? It can mean so many things. Good luck talking about this, man. Sharon has asked the question that I didn't ask.
Right. The title. I love that title. So the titles many people are involved in the process. I don't know if readers are aware of that or if that's how it works for all authors, but that's how it works for me. Once the book is basically done, you know, my editor and I have gone through all the changes that we want to make and it's ready to go on to like copy edits and proofreading and stuff like that. She and I sit down and we start putting together a list of titles. And I'll be honest, we're both a little opinionated, a little stubborn. So, you know, I'll send her a couple. She vetoes those. She sends me a couple back. I veto those. So we kind of go back and forth with this for a while. I mean, I can't even begin to tell you. I should have kept like a comprehensive list.
Yeah.
But I can't even begin to tell you the number of titles we went through for this book. But then we sort of ended up like wanting a title to convey the same thing, you know, and then there were just like different ways of saying it. And when we settled on It's Not Her, it was perfect. It carries a lot of weight and it was, you know, short and punchy. It's like a title that a reader will remember. And it was just so many things that we wanted it to be. And it felt perfect.
So you all, when you read this, and I know you will because you are smart readers, don't even try to figure out why the title is what it is. Just let the story wash over you. And in the end, you will know. and you will be happy. Uh, Renee is saying, why do we have to wait 3 whole weeks?
Sorry.
But here on Crime Time, we will bring it to you first, Renee, and you'll have first dibs. That said, maybe one of you will win. Well, certainly one of you will win a copy of It's Not Her. Let's spin, Jade, the wheel of fun. Yes, giveaway time, and see who is going to win this incredible book. And the winner, let's see, here we go. Oh, look at all of you. Susie Baldwin is here. I didn't see you before. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Some of you are new, and that's fantastic. And the winner is Vicki Gregory. That is wonderful. Congratulations, Vicki. And we will get this to you. You know what to do. Email me, and Jade will put up my email. Email me, and we will email Mary's people, and Mary's people will get you a copy of the book. The rest of you, you know what to do. Run, run, run. Click, click, click. Get your copy of It's Not Her. It is available for pre-order right now. I don't know why they call it pre-order, because you just order it, right? And
Right.
when it's published. But seriously, those pre-orders make a big difference. And Mary's publisher will watch that. If you pre-order a book, it's like voting for it. It's like saying, yes, I vote for this book. I want this book. I am supportive of this book. I'm enthusiastic about this book. I cannot wait for It's Not Her. So please do that. Mary, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you for having me, and thank you to everybody that joined us today, and to Hank, and to everyone who's here. Thank you for the amazing questions. I had such a great time.
Well, it's a fantastic book, and I cannot wait for you all to read it. Now, I want, though, you all to stick around. Mary, you can go write. I know you're working on another book, but you can get ready for your super duper book tour. Oh, let me ask you, though, before I let you go. You are going on a massive book tour. Can you just tell us some of the cities you'll be in and where we can find you to find out about where we can see you?
You can, if you go to my website under events, I believe it says you can find all of my information there, and I've posted it on social media and things like that as well. My tour kicks off the night before Pub Day, February 2nd in Chicago suburbs, Naperville, Illinois. But I have quite a few stops throughout the Midwest. And then week 2, I had mostly East Coast. I'm in New York, Atlanta, and then North and South Carolina. And week 3, I had more West Coast. I'm in California, Arizona, Houston, and then I'll head back home to Chicago.
3 weeks on the road. But that is a lot of happy readers, I have to say. This book is absolutely fantastic. Speaking of fantastic books, you all go grab a cup of coffee or tea or lemonade or Diet Pepsi or whatever it is, and come back at 4 p.m. in about 20 minutes to hear Emily Ross discuss her brand new Swallowtail, which is a marvelous small town gritty mystery that is absolutely lovely. Look at that beautiful, beautiful cover. So come back at 4 o'clock for that. Then next week we have 2 very special guests. One, a super special time, 2 p.m. ET. We'll have our own Jenna Blum with her Murder Your Darlings, which comes out today. Happy Pub Day to Jenna. And I want you to look at in the nib of this pen what that looks like. If you think it looks like a rabbit, it is a rabbit. It is a rabbit. And that is very meaningful in this very meta murder mystery. Murder Your Darlings. That's Jenna Blum next week at 2 p.m. ET. And then at 4 p.m., Amy P's Wildwood. This is sort of Kent Kruger meets Heather Gudenkauf. What could be better than that? And do you know this book? Do you know Amy, Mary?
No, I'm not familiar and I haven't read it, but you just added like 3 books to my TBR.
Good. You can read on the plane. You can read on the plane. Definitely so. So do come back next week at 4 o'clock for Emily Ross, and next week for those 2 fabulous authors, Jenna and Amy. Run, click, click, click to pre-order Mary Kubica's It's Not Her. Mary, again, thank you. Safe travels.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I am so grateful to you for doing this. And thank you again to everyone that joined us today.
I agree with you. And thank you for sharing your marvelous new book. You all, I will see you in 20 minutes or next Tuesday or both. And remember, until then, it is always safe inside a book.